My guest today is Andy Shepherd, and Andy is a peak performance and breakthrough coach, being the cause of transformation in the lives of individuals and organizations. He is trained and certified by Tony Robbins, and of course, you know who Tony is, and Chloe Madanis, and inspired by Dale Carnegie, Jack Canfield, T. Harv Eker, and so many others. He abandoned a successful corporate career in order to become a transformational leader. He is passionate about taking people out of crisis to where they want to be. Originally from the United Kingdom, he's lived in Brazil and been a resident of LA for the past 4 years. Welcome to Living Regret Free, Andy.
Hey, it's great to be on the show. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
inviting me.
Well, being a transformational coach is so important because there's so many people and organizations that need your help. But let's go into your background just a wee bit before we get started. You're British. We can tell that by your accent. But you lived in Brazil for 14 years. So why did you live there?
Well, yeah, I fell in love with a Brazilian woman when I was in the UK, and she kind of, through her magnetic powers, enticed me to go and live in Brazil. So
Wow,
that's
that's really something. That is a lot of power.
yeah. It was, and of course, I went over there for and stayed for a couple of weeks and to get her to know her better. And she took me to some of the beautiful beaches that they have in Brazil, and the sun there and fresh coconuts by the sea. I just thought, yeah, this is a great life. I've got everything here.
Well, Andy, there's a lot of places other than Brazil that has that sunshine. That's why I live in the places that I do. But and I'm so glad to hear of a man leaving a place to go for a woman because I run into more women who have uprooted their lives to follow a man. So it's a nice change of events. So let me ask you though, you left a career in computing behind and you were doing really, really well. Do you have any regrets?
To be honest with you, it was like a very, very stressful, and I really wasn't enjoying the stress there, and there was a lot of backbiting in the computer industry. It's mainly male dominated. I don't know whether things have changed now, but this is getting on 18 years ago now, and it really wasn't a nice environment to be in, and the stress levels were just astronomical because if a computer system is down, then the manager is jumping up and down on the repair engineer's head, almost literally sometimes. So, I really, really had enough of that and really wanted to get out of it.
Well, I mean, I can see why. I know that although just about everything today, I think, has stress tied to it. But, you now live in LA, which some people say is a stressful place to live, Andy, because of the traffic and the conditions and people are everywhere. So, what made you go to LA and leave Brazil?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, yes, there are stress levels here, but I've just learned to deal with it. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I use public transport a lot, especially the train system. And this way I don't need to worry about the traffic. I get there quicker than by car. I don't need to find a place to park my car. And, I don't need to pay to be feeding the meter, which works really well. And, I came over here to um, I nearly lost everything when I was in Brazil. And at that point, it was the best thing that ever happened to me because I thought I'd done everything. I thought I'm an intelligent guy. I've got a degree. I'm putting the hours in. I was doing 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, and working Sundays as well. And I thought, what is it that I'm not doing? And I realized the one thing I wasn't doing was working with my mind. So that's what I did. I started working with my mind and finding people who are great thought leaders who could really start changing my mindset, and then everything changed.
So, what kind of obstacles did you run into, and what do you do if you do run into an obstacle?
I mean, basically now I know that if there's an obstacle there, I look at it and I say, well, what is this? What can I learn from this? And I look at it and I say, how can I work around this and realize that I do have control and that there is the power of the mind. This is the crazy thing, that by controlling your mind and deciding what you want, you can actually start to achieve it. And this is not only for all of the great people who are entrepreneurs and who are multimillionaire, multi-billionaire. They know they know this. They have a concept in their mind and they decide that that's what's going to happen, and it does do. And without going into the mechanism of why, it's definitely the secret sauce. Athletes do this all the time. I mean, if you look at all of the gold medals that America got this year, and you look at the way that Michael Phelps is psyching himself up before he goes on swimming, he is completely in the zone, sending out what he wants, how he wants the result to be, and that's the secret. And this is why I came to America, to share what I knew, my knowledge here. And things were going very slowly in Brazil. There are many more opportunities here. They're great thought leaders. I thought, I want to learn from the best, and that's what brought me here.
So when you were in Brazil, were you still doing computing, or were you doing something else?
It's interesting. I could have got a really good job. There's a company called Embraer, who are airplane manufacturers, and they are the top.
I've flown in them many times.
There you go. Well, actually, they had digital computers with them, and I could have got a really high-flying job. And I thought, you know what? I really want to do something different. And I did something completely different. I ended up being a teacher, and then eventually running my own very successful school.
Wow, that's quite a change. Yeah. And so you ended up leaving there and going to LA. And what did you do when you first got to LA?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, originally I was going to be, I had a manager who was going to help me, and that didn't kind of quite work. It wasn't really going as fast as I wanted it to. So I ended up kind of helping a couple of people and working for them and learning a lot of experience from them. But each time I did this, it kind of sidetracked me from my original reason for being here. So then I had to kind of come back. I ended up back in LA again. One of them took me to Ojai. Another one took me to out in the desert north of Las Vegas. And each time I'd have to come back and start again in LA and regroup. And now this year I said, right, 2016 is going to be my year, and I'm really going to make it happen. And so far, I'm very pleased with the direction things are going.
So what do you think keeps you going more than anything else? You're coaching people on how to transform their lives. And of course, it's always like the shoemaker who has no shoes, right? And so we have to look at our own lives and say, how are we transforming our lives? So what is it that keeps you going, and why don't you give up in adversity?
Basically remembering a time when I was it was like the peak of summer. I was at the back. I got a room at the back of the school where I lived, and it was sweltering hot. I had no air conditioning. I had no windows where I could see outside. It's full of mildew. Basically, I've got cockroaches for friends because I don't have any money to go out, and I'm just watching TV and drinking beer, wondering what on earth have I got myself into, and thinking I've got no way out of this. And at that point where I'm a Mr. Fix-It, I always have a solution. I always have a way out. And at that point, I didn't and there's always a way out. There's always a positive, good way out. And I realized that I needed to work on my mind, and I needed to transform it and see things differently. And I don't want anybody to suffer what I've been through. And the people that I coach, they have, every single person that I talk to has got something most people have got something pretty dark in their past, and something that really needs to be transformed or let go of or dealt with. And I really want to be part of that process, because, I really do feel and that I've got the skills to do that. And, the testimonials I've got prove it.
So what would you talk about the mind, and of course I'm a big, huge believer in mindset, and how, in fact, I have a program that's called Mindset Matters. And most everybody that I interview and that I talk to and that I meet, when I say, okay, what's the bottom line here? It all comes back to mindset. And I know there are people out there that say, oh, that's crazy, but it really does come back to how you think and how you live and your approach to life. So what is the number one thing you recommend to people so they do get the best out of their life?
I think the number one thing is basically to find out what your passion is in your life. What are you passionate about? What do you love doing? What can you do? And time just disappears, that you just don't realize where the time goes. You look at your watch and say, wow, 2-3 hours have disappeared. How did that happen? When that's happening, basically you're finding where your passion point is. And we all have that. Maybe it's strumming on a guitar, maybe it's painting, maybe it's cooking food, who knows? We all have these different passions. And I believe that it's, just having the courage to find a way to actually, either definitely keep that as a hobby. You need to be doing that as much as possible, because we say, oh, I need to spend all of my time working, and I've got to bring the dollars in, and I've got to pay all my rent and all my bills. And yeah, I get that, but you've got to have something you enjoy. If you can do that with and make that a living, a place where you can work, then that is a phenomenal place. And just to know that really the mind is very, very powerful. And, if there's people who don't believe in this thing called law of attraction, and the reason is because they're thinking negatively, and negative stuff's being attracted to them, because, you're going to attract whatever your mind is focusing on. And we just need to transform that and dare ourselves to think of a beautiful future. And there's lots of blocks to doing that. This is a complicated subject. We're kind of led to believe maybe from our parents, maybe from our peers, maybe from the people that we've been brought up with and grown up with, that these are fanciful thoughts and we shouldn't think like that. Well, we should. And when we let go of these limited beliefs, then we can start moving forward and flowing and really going towards having a great life and in the direction that we want it to be. And that's what it's all about, isn't it, Gail?
Yeah, well, that's it. They always say like attracts like. So it is what you're thinking. So, I guess I would ask you, since, you're on this path, I can tell you're on this path, and you're very serious about the people you study with and you pay attention to. So who inspires you the most and why?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest change for me was with Tony Robbins. I mean, when I was when I was in my black hole and thinking, okay, I'm going to lose my life savings, I'll lose my school, I can't live in Brazil anymore. I don't want to go back to the UK because it's cold, it's damp, it rains a lot, and the people are not supportive to me. It doesn't work. So this was a really strong motivator for me to stay back. And I'd studied Jack Canfield and Bob Proctor and many people and T. Harv Eker. But then I heard Tony Robbins. I'd seen him in Shallow Hal, and I remember him in the elevator talking to Jet Black, and I thought, my goodness, I could not believe the wisdom that was coming out of his mouth. And it made me want to study him. And when I did, he got a lot of energy. And I'm an energy person. I've always been too energetic. And I just really kind of synchronized with him,